Darshak, welcome back after the break. I hope you're enjoying our Sunday show so far. In our first segment, we had Kaniz Ali. There were so many sides to her personality and the stuff that she's achieved. So she was a makeup artist, she's a publisher. She has done so many things, for example, with her humanitarian work. So much inspiration I took from that interview. Now, I did introduce our second guest briefly in our first segment, and his name is Ibrahim Rahman. Now, he is no stranger to the British Bangladeshi community. He is working as a social media manager at the University of Cambridge. He's also worked quite extensively on the digital side of things with Cambridge Mosque. And aside from that, he has also been bestowed with awards from the BBC. So we're going to be finding out about his media journey, the kind of things that he's done as a British Bangladeshi, not just in the media, but also in journalism. And now he's using social media to highlight the stories of British Bangladeshis. For example, I've seen in South Asian Heritage Month that he's posted on the University of Cambridge social media account promoting those of South Asian heritage. So lots to unpack here. So welcome Ibrahim Rahman to the Sunday Show.
Assalamu alaikum, Papa.
Welcome salam, and I'm very grateful that you've come all the way from Cambridge. That must have been a bit of a trek, but we really appreciate the fact that you're in the studio today.
No, it's great to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
We're very happy that you are in the studio. So there's so many parts to what you do. You're currently a social media manager at the University of Cambridge. Now, that's an incredible brand name to have, because we know that one of the best universities in the world is the University of Cambridge. And for you to be the voice piece of that, and for you to be the one that's communicating with millions of people, it's got millions of people following it, millions of people who maybe see the page but aren't even following it. That's a huge responsibility that you've taken on, and you're doing it with so much grace, and I do religiously follow your posts. So what kind of process do you go through mentally before you publish a post, before you click that publish button on a post?
That's a very good question, Proper. Working as a social media manager can be very exciting, can be very intense, but every day is different, and basically I'm part of a small team. I don't do it all alone. But between the three of us, there's myself, there's my manager SJ, and then on top of that we have the head of social media. Her name is Amy. So between the three of us, we basically plan every day what we're going to put out each day, certainly on different channels. We may even have to consider which channels or certain content is appropriate for. So once we've planned all that, we'll obviously decide on who's going to write a certain post, for which channels it's going to go out on, and then we'll obviously schedule it. So there's a lot of checking, a lot of content obviously to work from. As you know, the University of Cambridge is a huge organisation, lots of stories to cover, to do research, to do the latest events, latest news. Of course, Cambridge University is also a collegiate university. There's 31 different colleges, so there's all kinds of stories going on here. And obviously the main aim of the university is to try and attract more students to come to study. Also maybe people who want to work at the university. So there's lots of things that the university wants to prioritise, but social media, certainly what my role is in terms of how we try to reach out to those audiences, there's a lot to cover.
Very fascinating. And I heard that last year you got promoted to now the role of manager, which was very delightful news.
Coordinator,
you've had quite a journey over the past few years in a variety of different media roles that's now led to your managerial post at the University of Cambridge. So describe that journey for our viewers that you've been on.
Yeah, so social media coordinator, that's the correct position. I'm not quite the manager yet. But yeah, initially I started off as a social media assistant. That was back in September 2019. So as you say, it was only just almost a year ago now that I've become a social media coordinator. But what my role entails now is where I'm leading more on like small to medium-sized campaigns. You mentioned South Asian Heritage Month. That's one campaign I'm overseeing at the moment. It's actually on right now. It started in mid-July and ends in mid-August. So that's a really good opportunity for us, particularly to reach out to our South Asian student societies at the university to showcase the diversity within the university. And it's great, particularly for prospective students who may also think about applying to Cambridge, where they can see and identify people who look like themselves. That's a really great way of encouraging them to apply. If you're good enough, then these students we obviously encourage them to apply to the university.
Definitely goes with our first segment that we had about believing in yourself and not giving up. Like, if you have the merit and you work hard, then you should just believe in yourself and you should go for it. So I'm quite curious to hear about your journey pre-Cambridge University, because now we're seeing this amazing brand name, but I'm sure lots of our viewers are maybe looking up to you and thinking, that's where I want to be, but how do we actually get there? So we've actually got a nice montage of some of the things that you've been up to, so I think that would be a nice sort of transition, and then we'll come back to our video. So Priya Darshak, we're now going to see a little video montage of our guest here, Ibrahim Rahman, so we'll be able to see his journey throughout the media work that he's been doing.
Kareem Foundation is raising emergency funds for local people who are struggling to buy food or pay their household bills. Help us to support those in our communities most affected by the cost of living crisis.
Ibrahim is the social media officer for the mosque, and he says during the pandemic and Ramadan, as people look for spiritual guidance, all the social media outlets are gaining popularity.
It's really effective in communicating key messages that people in our community, but also globally, would want to know about.
What is fasting? What does it actually mean?
Well, it's one of the 5 pillars of Islam, and it's obligatory in the fasting month of Ramadan, but it's also present and central to just about every religious tradition that I can think of.
Well, lots of sides to this guest as well. And something that I found quite inspiring is seeing the journey about how he's used different organisations to now get to where he is. And he, again, hasn't forgotten his roots. So he's been involved with the mosque in Cambridge. He's also been involved with the Kareem Foundation, which is very close to his heart. I'm sure we'll find out more about it. So back to our guest, Ibrahim Rahman. We were talking about your journey to getting to now being one of the social media coordinators at the University of Cambridge. So prior to that, you were involved with the Cambridge Mosque. You were also doing some stuff we saw with ITV. You had a bit of work that you did with the BBC as well. So describe that few years between, let's say, graduating and then working for the University of Cambridge.
So I graduated in 2012, a non-media related degree, I should say, information security and forensic computing, and that was at Anglo-Ruskin University in Cambridge. But I always had this fascination with media and technology and comms, and I remember in the final year at university, I remember doing a radio interview with BBC Radio Cambridgeshire. So that's where it started off from, and I thought, well, maybe there is an opportunity of actually getting into media. You don't necessarily have to study media to get into media. And obviously that's ultimately proved to be the case, a few years later down the line. But it was a very difficult journey, lots of ups and downs, trying to build, connections, build a network, and just trying to secure that work experience. It's not been easy.
How does one secure that initial work experience? Because that initial work experience can potentially open so many doors for people, but if you don't have that, it's very difficult to then navigate from then onwards. So how do you find that initial work experience? Let's say if there's a 16, 17-year-old watching who wants to get their foot in the door, what can they do?
I think it's really important to try and attend as many events as you can. So like with myself, I think it really helped to go to certain networking events, especially if it's like a media event. There might be certain people in the industry who are there. So if you can go up to them, have a chat with them, ask to exchange details, and then where it can sort of lead to, like, let's meet up for a coffee, let's have a chat. And it's those sorts of conversations, that's what can lead to trying to secure some kind of work experience. And of course, once you've got it and once it's all done, that's another thing to add to your CV. And that's how it sort of worked in my case, really. I know we've had someone who's very well known in our British Bangladeshi community, Nadia Ali Apu. She's someone I've known for actually 10 years this year, actually. But
she was our guest in the last episode.
She was indeed, but I met her at a British Bangladeshi networking event. So that's how it started, and then just by showing sort of enthusiasm and that passion for wanting to work in media, that's sort of how it leads to securing that work.
Something that she actually said on the last episode is get in touch. That was her main message. Like, if you're a British Bangladeshi, if you're doing good things, just get in touch. So
and you have to be very persistent as well. You've got to keep knocking on the door. There were certain occasions where, someone will say to me, just send your CV in, and we'll get back to you. And I'll send my CV and I'll reply to them, and I wouldn't hear a reply for ages. And then I remember doing it like about 3 or 4, 5, 6 times, whatever it is. And then like many months later down the line, eventually it did lead to securing some work. And I know during the break you were saying about Wimbledon. So that was one place where I did manage to secure some work experience, working with ITV News in 2017, and that was at the Wimbledon Championships, and it's probably one of the greatest work experiences I've ever had. But it was just amazing being there. You see some of the players like Andy Murray, Roger Federer in training, Rafa Nadal as well, just chilling. It was amazing. Some
of the best tennis players who've ever lived, and you got to see them up close, which is
it was an amazing experience.
An amazing experience, yeah.
Yeah, but just to be there and to learn how filming is done, how they do interviews, and then sort of how that goes from there to TV, just to be part of that process was really insightful.
So all of those learning experiences, I think, build up over time, and they make you the person that you are. So you're saying that any sort of opportunity that you can get in this field, it's valuable to try and exert yourself and try and immerse yourself in those situations and be able to learn a lot. And certainly we can see that in the gentleman that you've become. Now let's talk about the Kareem Foundation. because that's something that I've seen in your video montage and we've seen all over social media. Orange and green are the colours to look out for. So it was inspired by your Nana's work. Let's first of all hear about the significance of your Nana's legacy and how that started this foundation.
Yes, so my Nana, sadly he passed away before I was born in 1985. His name was Abdul Karim, so that's where that was the inspiration for the name of the Karim Foundation. So my mother, Shahida Rahman, and my Sutu Mama, Kal Karim, they are both the co-founders and trustees of the charity. So this was founded in 2020, in the early stages of the pandemic. And I think we always had in our minds as a family that because of the work that my Nana did when he came to the UK, or to Cambridge in the late 50s, there's a lot that he did to help people. We hear a lot of stories from people who have been part of the community, especially in our Bangladeshi community in Cambridge, from when they knew him. They told many great stories about him. So that gave us the inspiration to obviously launch this charity ourselves, and especially during the pandemic when a lot of people needed help, people from all backgrounds. And that's something that we're really committed to doing. So my role is Director of Communications for the charity. This is something I do in my spare time away from the day job. But it's something I've been doing since we've started almost 3 years ago. And our main aim is to help people who, like I said, from all backgrounds, people who need food support, people who are struggling to buy food, people who are struggling to pay for their energy bills. As you know, there's a cost of living crisis that's
and we had the pandemic as well, so
yes, of course,
very much needed the work that you're doing.
Yeah, so because of those reasons alone, that's why we're continuing to still help people from all different backgrounds, really.
So what are the future sort of plans of this organisation and the work that you're doing to alleviate poverty in Cambridge?
So we don't do it alone. We do work with other partners. So we are quite closely affiliated with Cambridge City Council. We also work with the Cambridge Ethnic Community Forum. So we identify families or individuals in Cambridge who do need that support. And we do also have certain challenges as well, because yes, we are actually helping many members of our Bangladeshi community, but there are people who don't necessarily want to come forward even though they do need help, because there is that dignity issue. People don't really want to ask for help. There is that issue. But we have found sort of systems in place where we can work with maybe like a middle person, so we don't necessarily see who we're helping, but there is someone in the middle who we work with, and they can pass on that food support, or if it's like a fuel voucher which helps to pay for their energy bills, then we can do that. But as I say, we've been doing it for 3 years, and it's still something that we're doing right now.
I really like how you're branching out in all these different positive things. So through the foundation and through even the work through Cambridge University, I'd say is a very positive impact, a very big positive impact that you're having through that work as well. So very admirable, all these different things that you're doing in Cambridge, not just in Cambridge, I'd say beyond Cambridge as well. The impact of that is completely international. So what would you say has been the highlight of your media career thus far?
God, that's a very good question. I mean, I already mentioned one of them. That was at Wimbledon. Like I say, that was just amazing to be at one of the biggest sporting events in the world. Another great experience for me was working at ITV Anglia. So that was back in 2018, and that was when I was working as a production journalist. I was leading their diversity initiative for the East of England, and that was basically involving bringing in contacts who maybe we could speak to for certain news stories. It was about improving, like I said, that diversity into their programming. So let's say, for example, in the past they may have been speaking to like a lawyer who maybe comes from a white middle class background, and he might have been like a local contact to them who they've always been to, who they've always gone to. But what we want is where maybe you can refer to other people who also can still work as a lawyer, but they come from a different background. Maybe they come from an Asian background or an African background, an Arab background, or maybe a different religion. So it's just about having a bigger pool, really. So that way, there's the viewership. So not the viewership, but just when you're watching the news stories, our audience is, as you know, there's so many people in the audience. They've got
you need to make sure that you're catering for lots of different voices and making people feel included. So
exactly,
when you're posting something, you need to imagine lots of different potential people that could be reading it, different age groups, perhaps different demographics. Is there a particular post that you remember being excited about posting? I saw one in the video when you were celebrating. Was that just acting, or was it a particular post that you got really excited about the feedback for?
It was acting, but pretty bad acting.
4,700 likes or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that was earlier in the year where we shared some nice photos around Cambridge. They also tend to do pretty well on social media for us. It's because they're iconic. Everyone around the world recognises that. But yes, it was one of our posts that did really well, so we decided to celebrate. And yeah, I didn't do a very good job of showing it, but yeah.
No, you're a great actor as well, as we saw in that video. Another one that we can talk about in our next episode. Well, listen, it's been such a pleasure having you on. If there are young people out there who want to break into media or follow in your footsteps, then I'd like to hear your last advice for them.
Yeah, once again, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been great, and I guess the advice really is just to keep working hard, patience, persistence, and perseverance. And these are words that my mum has particularly shared with me, and I think a lot of that has come from her own personal life experience. So, shout out to Mum, really. I'm sure, if you're watching.
Shahida Rahman, who's also been our guest on the show. And I'm really glad that you're being recognised in the right places. For example, the organisations that you've been with, like, for example, you recognised with the BBC Make a Difference Award last year, and that's probably just the start of your journey. So we wish you all the very best for the future. And, of course, when you do become a manager, then do come back on our show. But we wish you all the very best for the future. Thank you so much, Ibrahim Rahman, for being our guest on the Sunday show.
Thank you so much, Papa. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Welcome, Salam. So, for our shock, we just had another very inspiring segment, and certainly the thing that I learned from our guest here is, again, knock on doors. Don't give up and always believe in your dreams. So we're now going to be moving on to the next part of our Sunday show, which is a fashion show as usual. So let's check out today's outfits.